We welcome all of you on our special Friday webinar series. EGROW Foundation, a recent think tank in NCR region, is basically a policy-oriented research think tank. Our objective is research-based policy advice to the government and other stakeholders. In the last 1 year, we have been conducting these webinars. We have been asking the best minds across the world in India and abroad to come and speak to us on various burning issues. We have been very fortunate that on contemporary issues that we had anticipated to conduct these seminars, we have had very good participation from both officials, academicians, and research scholars. It is in this context that today we have organized a book discussion on a very important topic, and that is River Ganga. And you know, River Ganga is the nerve for all Indians and Indian economy. To chair this session, as we always do, we have requested Professor Vinod Tare, Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Kanpur, and founding head, Center for Ganga River Basin Management and Studies. We have requested him to chair the session and conduct the proceedings. Professor Tare is at IIT Kanpur, a place which I really love and I've seen it. The campus is so beautiful. And of course, IIT Kanpur has its own reputation. Professor Tare has also held Sir M. Visvesvaraya Chair Professor established by the Ministry of Water Resources, Government of India. He is a civil engineer, obtained his master's and doctoral degrees in environmental engineering from IIT Kanpur, and subsequently did postdoctoral research at the Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago. And Professor Tare began his professional career with a short stint at the Engineers India, and then subsequently chose to be in the academic world. In the academic world, he has guided numerous PhD theses. He has been the chairman of International Conference on Water Harvesting, Storage and Conservation, and first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth India Water Impact Summit held in 2012, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, respectively, jointly organized by the Ministry of Jal Shakti and IIT Kanpur-led Center for Ganga River Basin Management and Studies. He has served on numerous national and international panels and committees on various issues. Something which I was very impressed with his work was he has developed nature-friendly toilet systems that has been successfully piloted for passenger trains in Indian railways, for communities, houseboats, large congregations such as Kumbh Mela, etc., and has a huge potential for deployment for public use. Dr. Tare was the leader of the consortium of 7 IITs for the preparation of Ganga River Basin Management Plan. So with this vast experience on River Ganga, we have requested Professor Vinod Tare to chair the session and now hand it over to him to conduct the proceedings further. Professor Tare, please.
Namaskar, and thank you very much for that elaborate introduction. I really appreciate that. It is my privilege, and I really feel fortunate to be associated with this particular session. Also, I was fortunate enough to interact with both the authors. Though my interaction was officially in the sense that I was preparing, I was from the IIT consortium side and they were from the government side. But I can very frankly tell you that this interaction was never like interacting with government officers. It was more like we are talking as a research scholars and discussing on all issues very much in depth. And that is what I would say is very, very special with both the authors, Rajiv, Ranjan, Mishra ji, as well as Puskal Upadhyay. And that is also the reason, even though Puskal ji left NMCG and we still kept on interacting and we still continue to interact And also Rajiv ji also initially, of course, he was there with Mission Ganga, NMCG, but then he had a small stint at Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. But then I was lucky enough to have him again. It was very pleasant surprise for me that he came back as in the second state as a Director General. And both have very keen interest in Ganga. Something that I'd say, the title of the book itself is very interesting. It says Ganga, reimagining, regenerating, and reconnecting. The word re is very important. And in fact, I was going through the book. Somewhere Rajiv ji himself writes that he was taught constants and variables, or he has studied constant and variables as a science student. But then he found when working with Ganga that those constants also become a function of something very dynamic. Okay, and that is, I think, is very peculiar about rivers, natures, and Ganga, and that's why I think this title, reimagining, because we will have to keep on reimagining about the nature. As the things change, they are dynamic, so we'll have to reconstruct in our mind, of course keeping the ancient and the pristine image in mind, but with the changes that happen naturally also, and also due to the human interaction, we'll have to keep on reimagining and also keep on rejuvenating, because we obviously will interact with the rivers and the nature, and constant efforts are required to ensure that they are rejuvenated, and that cannot happen unless until we connect people. So with old people, we'll have to reconnect, like we realize when we are in the service or business job, we are so busy with our own day-to-day affair. It is only after we get relieved formally from the job, we start thinking about our old friends, reconnecting, learning more from them. How did the so this is also a very important aspect of the. So I think with this brief introduction, and we will learn and talk more about the book as well as the topic. But I do not want to take the privilege from the authors to talk about the book and how the idea came and what are the salient features. So I will request first Rajiv Ranjan Mishra ji to give a brief on what they want to say, talk about. Of course, many things are there in the book. People would have read by now many of these things, but still it is always good to re-emphasize on certain things. So that opportunity and privilege I would like to give it to the authors. So first Rajiv Ranjan Mishra ji, and then Puskal, very brief, and then I will also request them, in the interest of time, and since Agarwal ji has to leave at 6:15, so what we can do is whatever pressing things that you want to say it in the first, but detailing you probably can also include while answering or commenting on the questions or suggestions that come in. So with that, I hand over to Rajiv Ranjan Mishra ji to give his initial remarks or presentation, whatever that he has planned.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Tare. You have already set the stage very nicely. And as you said, I'm really lucky to be with the panelists who have known me, or I had the good fortune of working with them. Dr. O.P. Agarwal sir is one of them with whom I have a long association, and I have been benefited from his guidance. So I will not take much time. Actually, I was told to also prepare. I mean, I have prepared presentation, but we will very quickly go through that. And in fact, without presentation, also I can share some of the ideas. But before we go into presentation, primarily the very idea of writing this book came to us. As you know, we are basically practitioners, not really a very career author. But we had certain coincidences, like you said. I had a chance to work with rivers, either in Ganga twice, or even in the state I was working in irrigation. So I think something was driving me close to the rivers. I wrote that also in my book, right in the first chapter as Call of Ma Ganga, and then met Puskal in my first stint at the Joint Secretary level in MOEF in this mission. Very interesting things. Maybe when he will speak later on, then perhaps he can share some of those thoughts. And even if I left for about 3 years in urban development and housing, he continued for some time. Then I joined by the time he had left, but somehow we kept in touch and we kept on thinking about it. And sometime in 2020, we thought that everyone keeps on asking, कुछ हो रहा है क्या? गंगा में कोई काम होगा? When can we see clean Ganga? So I think all kinds of things, and the whole process is so enormous and so complex. We thought, why don't we try to record some of our experiences? So primarily this book is not a kind of autobiography. It has some personal experiences. Certainly we relate to our experience, but it also is a story of Ganga. It's also a story of Namami Gange, or the organization which is running this mission, the NMCG. Its growth of NMCG also is there, but there is a lot more than that. It also touches upon the culture of the place, the history, some of the interesting belief in that area. So we have tried to pack all of them. But the idea is we have to reimagine. We have to think what needs to be done, understand the problem, and then take action to rejuvenate, to do something. And finally, it cannot be done unless you connect people. So I think that is in essence about the book. So Vivek, if you can just share the presentation. Presentation has some photographs, so I will be very quick. So okay, next one, please. This is the book you can see. Next slide, please. Again, there is a chapter why Ganga matters, and later on Puskal perhaps can relate. We all know about it being the lifeline more than a river. Ganga does not flow through forest and towns and villages. It flows through our heart. So I think it's very close to us. Only one thing I will just say, Gangattu. There are certain special qualities in this river which has been noted, recorded time and again in not only in the scriptures, by historians, by scientists. So I think we have also talked about it, about the scientific work on that, about the special quality of this water. Science and faith, they go together. Professor Tare will perhaps give us some of the slokas which he has been telling us about what was there in our scriptures telling that do's and do nots for a river. And it's really a kind of gift to the humankind from sky by the gods. And we must treat it like that. Next, please. Next. Let's just see the source of Ma Ganga, the Gomukh, and next one. Few pictures. See, this is in our book, there is a photo story. We also talk about the natural wonder, the Ganga is. So I think some stories are like that. This is the river of people. So I think there are some photographs showing that aspect of Ganga, and there are other aspects of river also. Next one. Like this is a view in Haridwar, Kumbh. I think still you don't see many people, but sometimes you can see lakhs of people gathering there on this bank in the Har Ki Pauri. Next. This is something we will perhaps get a chance, but the enormity of the challenge needs to be understood. So there is a chapter we say it's a big problem with many stakeholders, many levels of governments, many aspects, and how you tackle all of them. Who is the real stakeholder? In fact, if you start noting down that who all are stakeholders, we work with many institutions, the whole whiteboard or blackboard gets full, and still will find new people who are also having some interest in this river. There are governance issues, there are capacity challenges. What are the precedents? People all wanted to clean Ganga. It's not a new effort. I mean, it has been going on, but the manner in which it is being done, the approach perhaps is bringing a lot of novelty. So that is there. And as you said, the constants and variable, unpredictability of the problem. I think even if you are not directly in charge of something, you will have to deal with it. Because हर आदमी ही पूछेगा गंगा कब साफ होगी और आपने क्या किया? So I think that unpredictability. Haridwar, we were fully ready for Kumbh. Everything, all projects were done. I will show some pictures. 100% clean water, everything. But COVID came, and then the entire preparation for Mahakumbh went into some other direction. And then suddenly you say it's a super spreader Kumbh. So you may not be responsible, but ultimately the enormity, the wickedness of the problem keeps on haunting you. Next one. Next one. Yeah, so I think this again, I will not get into detail. Maybe Puskal later on will say startup journey. In the book, we wrote one particular chapter about this, the startup journey. It was a two-member organization. When I joined, me and Puskal were the only two government officers, and one or two retired people were there, and we had to recruit people. We had to set up the NMCG. We had to do something. I'm talking about 2013-14. We were also working on Ganga River Basin Management Plan, which IIT Kanpur was leading under the leadership of Professor Tare. So I think several institutions were evolving. It kept on evolving into Namami Gange came in 2014. It was announced 2016. NMCG was converted into authority under EP Act. 5-tier structure came. I will not get into detail, but now there is an institutional network right from the National Ganga Council under Prime Minister to the district magistrate, district Ganga Council. So I think there is a lot of learning on the institutions, how it has evolved, and how this evolution has led to some good outcome. I think some results which has come. And then in the end, we also say that what should, in our opinion, what should be the future of this organization, how we should go. Next one. Next, please. Very quickly look at the whole problem. I think this emerged primarily from the Ganga River Basin Management Plan that helped us in understanding this enormity of the problem, that scientific report. More than 80 thematic reports are there in that particular huge plan. One idea, these words also emerged from that, Nirmal Ganga, Nirmalta, the pollution aspect, ecology and flow, that's very important. Cleaning is essential, but as mathematically we say, necessary but not sufficient condition. So similarly, cleaning is necessary, but it's not going to rejuvenate the river. You have to go beyond cleaning to rejuvenation. So ecology becomes important. Flow becomes very important. Aviralta becomes very important. And then you have to connect with people. I think so. This Jan Ganga we started calling recently the Jan Ganga. Aviral and Nirmal Ganga we have been talking for a few years. So from last 2 years, we started talking about Jan Ganga, and whatever research, policy related things we have done, it's a kind of Gyan Ganga. So primarily, I think these 4 blocks are a kind of building block under which this whole program emerging out of GRBMP, Ganga River Basin Management Plan, is emerging and reaching somewhere. Next. Again, this needs a lot of discussion, but various chapters we have talked about Nirmalta because, and lots of new things which have come here. First of all, this is a program which was not limited to only cities. Ganga Action Plan 1, 2 picked up few selected cities, few area in the city, and then tried to clean it up. That did not give much result. So it's a comprehensive thing. All the towns along the river, all the villages along the river, villages for the first time were included. We also got help from the Swachh Bharat Mission. Non-point source pollution, the organic farming, the pollution due to the agriculture, all those issues came. And what is very important is what you can do, how you can do things fast, number one. That institutional mechanism helped us in speeding up things. And then doing it right becomes very important. And that is where, in perhaps next slide, I will tell you, we started looking at केवल construction करने से कुछ नहीं होगा. STP बनाना ही नहीं, उसको चलाना भी जरूरी है. So you have to actually ensure that they operate, they work with full efficiency. So I think we came up with the concept of PPP, hybrid annuity, and also developing market, trying to include into the urban planning, the whole idea of cleaning Ganga, river sensitive planning. All these issues came in this, and then we write about them in different chapters about this whole thing. Next one, please. Next, please. So this is a very important thing. Why I am saying, because this is a kind of model which is emerging out of Namami Ganga. It's not only Ganga. Now this is a thing which is being used for wastewater management outside Ganga Basin also. For other rivers also, this model can work. What we are trying to do is trying to include PPP into this. Idea is that we are going to pay for performance, not just for the construction. So I think some of the journey, some of those things, how it got evolved, and then also try to improve governance by bringing old assets, new assets, all under one umbrella, under one operator, and trying to make it more accountable and more responsible. So Because if we forget about the old assets, if we go into the program that it is not constructed under Ganga Action Plan, so I will not do it, it's under JNURM, nothing like that. This is a program which integrated a particular sector, the wastewater management sector. Next one, please. Just some picture and some impact thing, because there is a chapter on Uttarakhand. We call it Sweet Scent of Success. Why we call it? Because Uttarakhand was a great lesson. When we joined 2013, great flood came, Kedarnath flood. So how we learnt about the ecological flow, hydroelectric projects, and then cleaning Uttarakhand. And then it was really very happy thing when PM inaugurated all the projects finally. In 2020, we completed everything. 2020, all the projects were completed. And then we were very happy to see, like you see the condition of Haridwar, perhaps the largest city in Uttarakhand. The BOD and DO, the two measures, I think we are now at a category A level, the first category of the best possible water quality in Haridwar. We have reached it. From 50 MLD capacity, we have created 150 MLD capacity, enough for next 15 years. So all the proposals, all the projects, we are looking at 15 years and doing it. Next. Next, please. Yeah. So this is about Rishikesh. I have included it just to show that we have also narrated some new solutions. Because if you see, you can see River Ganga and then see the crowded area, and one huge dirty drain used to go in front of this and then pollute Ganga. And there was no land. So for the first time, we took some risk. We went for 4-story STP, India's first 4-story STP, where actually we went vertical. Lot of design challenges, but this again becomes a model. Number of places STPs are held up because land is not there. So I think we have created a model, and now several places double-story STPs have started coming. So I think instead of waiting for land for years together, land not coming, I think we went for some solution because we were trying to do things in a time-bound manner. And this has become a very good, it's working for more than a year. 7.5 MLD, not a small STP, and working quite well. Next one, please. This is an image of Sisamo Nala. I mean, Kanpur is a symbol of pollution of Ganga. So whenever we talk, so I think this is the kind of thing which was flowing for more than 100 years. The left side, this kind of flow, it was kind of waterfall of sewage water, which was going on. Now that whole thing has been with working on the Kanpur with a very, very complete solution thing, utilizing the existing assets. So we'll be right about that. I think the whole case of Kanpur is in a chapter. We thought it really deserves. So it's about industrial thing, also about the tan reach, about sewage, about the first urban river management plan. Also, we tried to start from Kanpur. So I think this is a kind of very interesting story. And also it's very important because if you can clean up Kanpur, if you can improve water quality there, a confidence comes that, okay, maybe some other places also it will be possible to do it, because this was the largest Nala. 140 million liter per day water was going into Ganga for almost 100 years. Next one. So you can see the dissolved oxygen should be higher than 5. It is high and it's increasing, and BOD which should come down has started coming down. So I think that impact is quite visible in Kanpur also on water quality. Next. This again, I think we have deliberated a lot. Prayagraj is a very interesting study. And then we have talked about Kumbh. We have talked about the largest ephemeral city. We have talked about urban planning. A temporary city is managed so well. And what were the challenges of 2019 and how it was done? It was actually a defining moment because people started believing that Ganga water can improve sometime after 2019 Kumbh. And similarly, when Prayagraj is an example of ephemeral city, Varanasi is basically the river and city. Kasi and Ganga, they are eternal. They exist together. So I think that is something which is very important. Several STPs have been completed. Ramna I have highlighted because this is a very interesting case. It actually was following absolutely the Murphy's law. What can go wrong will go wrong. So the concessionaire first hybrid annuity project, the concessionaire, that company ran into problem. It became sick. The banker was Yes Bank. They also ran into problem. So we had to really do a lot of new things. So I think that whole thing is narrated very clearly about how certain unusual decisions in government helped in completing this project. Next. Next. Next slide, please. And this basically tells the overall, you can see the impact in different cities, and then how dissolved oxygen is increasing, BOD is coming down. So this gives a kind of picture. Next, please. And this we have compared 2014. You see the red line, the red color block, 1649. So much was actually not even planned. So much of the capacity which we had to create and untreated sewage was going. And 880 was also not working well. And now we have created 2,374 MLD, and then whatever you see is also under construction. So I think everything was planned and has come into place. So that's the kind of change which has come in 5-6 years. Next. Here again, I will just very quickly say that ecology and flow. So we have talked about biodiversity, small rivers, floodplains, and e-flow. That's very important. Again, historical. For the first time in India, environmental flow was legally notified by NMCG for Ganga. So I think there are several lessons in different chapters, and we write some of the interesting anecdotes about that. Next, please. And this is also a picture from the book. We say that we often forget and we want to utilize all the water of the river for irrigation or for our purpose. But actually, the book also reminds that river is for everyone. So these otter, the golden Mahasir of Uttarakhand, they also say that we also want Ganga. We also love Ganga. Leave some water for us, because that's the whole ecology. So I think several places we have talked about that also. Next, please. Next, please. And then again, Bihar. In Bihar, we talk about dolphin. The project Dolphin started from there. This is the riverfront, a promenade, a new project which came up. Jharkhand, very interesting things. The Raj Mahal used to be capital of Bengal Suba at one point of time in Jharkhand. So we talk about some of the interesting things about Jharkhand. Next, please. And similarly, the chapters on Bengal talks about the development of the port, barrage, the Hilsa, the East Kolkata wetland. There are several very interesting stories within the stories in Bengal. It's a very unique state. It has river, it has Bay of Bengal, it also has Himalayas. So I think from Darjeeling to Bay of Bengal, Bengal perhaps gives you the case and a study of all kinds of things which you can see in ecology. And of course, Sundarban, the mangroves, the impact of climate change, the fascinating story of Bon Bibi, that the human wildlife conflicts, all those things come here. Next, please. Next. Next slide. And then, of course, we talk that Ganga is not 2,500 kilometer plus river. Ganga means all the tributaries. It's a kind of integrate water web. So there is a chapter talking about tributaries, about wetlands, talking about other aspects of Ganga. And unless we look at the big picture, the whole system, perhaps rejuvenating river will not be complete. So I think it reminds us, perhaps tributaries are important in their own right, and then they need to be further emphasized. Next one, please. Next. And then people river connect. I think later on, perhaps Puskal will talk about the owner of Ganga, because we were asked this question by one Swamiji, Swami Sananji, when we met. He said that, "Aap bataiye Ganga ko own kaun karta hai?" And it was a great question. So ultimately, you have to bring people's interest, because making all these things, and you see several dots, we created several structures. They are all catalysts. So one is creating catalysts and creating lots of activities, and then trying to keep them engaged. And today, some thousands and thousands of volunteers are there trying to do something on their own, sometimes through the program of NMCG, sometimes on their own. So I think this is a kind of model which is developing through several activities, through quiz, through all kinds of things. So I think this is something which is important. Maybe later on we can further dwell into this. Next, please. Next. And in the end, we also ponder, I think after that, in one chapter, we try to write about all the many firsts, because several things have happened for the first time. The scientific afforestation. Nowadays, you must be hearing about 13 more rivers will follow this forestry program, which we did it with the FRI. We did it right in 2016, 17, 18, started it. So I think all those things have been recorded, so that maybe we can develop models for replication in other places with suitable modification. Understanding river, I think one of the motive of writing this book is also that try to understand river. I mean, try to convey this message. Then, then how to sustain all these efforts? So what could be done to pay for its own upkeep? Use, reuse. There is a lot of discussion about that. Pricing of water. And as I told you about institution, we have to get into the river basin organization. How this institution can sustain, how it can keep on learning, how it can also learn from tradition and modern science is something which is very, very close to the heart of Professor Tare also. And it's a continuous work. We have to keep on working and keep on doing our duty as we keep on cleaning our house. Similarly, you have to keep on cleaning your river. Next, please. And the book ends, and then my presentation also with this. But the most important lesson that the river teaches you, that if you do not disturb, pollute, defile, or obstruct its path, it will always remain pure. It will then bring all the goodness of nature and help you live a happy, healthy, and prosperous life. And this cannot be too much to ask for. We need to come together and unify to save the greatest gift of nature to India and to entire humanity for posterity. In fact, we have no choice but to do so. So we end with this note, this book, and it's a kind of appeal to the readers that what each one of us can do. I said that we are creating catalysts. So each one who thinks about it, who tries to understand it, who tries to help others is becoming another catalyst to carry this mission forward. So I think that is the idea of writing this book. And there are interesting cases in different chapters, some anecdotes, some scientific facts, some scriptures, some religious facts. So I think it's a collection of all of them. Next, please. So that is the presentation. So we have to look at the whole circle of life, Ganga Sagar, and Lakshman Jhula in Rishikesh. So sorry, I think I should have taken 5 minutes less so that we could have spent some more time for sir. So maybe Puskal can come later on, and then Professor Tare, back to you. You can request Dr. Agarwal.
You're on mute, Professor Tare.
Professor Tare, you are on mute.
So what I was saying is, I will take the privilege of being born little earlier than Pushkal and request him to speak after Dr. Agarwal in the interest of time. So ultimately, what your talk and what the book is talking about is we all want to make sure that our Ganga remains what we now call it as Samarth Ganga. That and Ganga is synonym to all rivers, not just the biophysical entity. And that means it is our responsibility to make sure that all rivers retain their capability to serve the humanity and the whole planet in general. And that is the objective of the Namami Gange program. That is, we want to make sure all rivers retain their capability, which we call it as Samarth Ganga. And already the various aspects, whether it is Nirmal Ganga or Aviral Ganga, has been talked about in book. And Jana Ganga and Jnana Ganga, all are the required things. And finally, development and river conservation has to go together. That's what our Prime Minister talks about, Earth Ganga. So all these 5 pillars will make all our rivers capable. So with this, I would now request our guest, Dr. O.P. Agarwal, to give his reaction, comments, suggestions, and of course, any issues that you would like to raise. So over to you, Dr. O.P. Agarwal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tare, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest on this. When Charan wrote to me, my first reaction was, what is it that I can possibly say? I'm not an expert on Ganga, but Charan is a very dear friend. Rajiv is a very dear friend. So I could not say no to that, but I've been thinking in my mind on what is it that I can possibly say. So I won't say much about the Ganga per se, or the work that the Namami Gange has done. But hearing Rajiv, a few points that come to my mind. I just want to sort of highlight some of these. One is that working in the government, you get a salary to do something. Whether you do your work because of the salary that you get or because you do it for a certain passion in your heart, I think that is what makes the difference between a good officer and a not so good officer. And clearly, what Rajiv has demonstrated through many things that he mentioned is that passion in his heart, the fire in the belly that he has in him. I think that really came out. And he said it right in the beginning that the Ganga doesn't flow through forest or agricultural fields and things like that. It flows through our heart. You know, that's a very powerful statement to make for anyone. And I think that really reflects the passion that he has in that work of his. It's not just flowing through our heart, it's really the place that we all travel to ultimately. That is our ultimate home. Our last journey is to Ma Ganga. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there are many problems, and I can list many others, which are often not getting sorted out because we don't take this systematic approach to trying to solve this problem. We adopt a very siloed approach to solving these problems. Now, solving the problem of Ganga really, where Namami Gange, Rajiv, and others have succeeded, is in a comprehensive approach to problem identification. And what you want to get to. So this whole thing about Nirmal Ganga, Aviral Ganga, Jan Ganga, Gyan Ganga is really an indication of the comprehensiveness of the approach that has been adopted. And unless you do that, your solutions are only piecemeal and they don't go very far. So I think that is a great thing that has been done in taking a comprehensive approach. The third thing I would say is, a lot of people do good work, but I think documenting it is extremely important. Documenting is not just for promoting what you have done, but documenting it is really for posterity. Why did a certain thing happen? How did it happen? So that successors who come into this position recognize why a thing was done in a certain manner and don't play around with it too much. So that I think is a very good thing in government if we can have people documenting what they've done and why they have done that. So I think this book clearly indicates that this is an approach that has been taken. And I think that's a very good thing to have done. The next point I would say is, see, Rajiv was very right when he says that, again, in the government system, you have money for a project, which means you have money to build something. But often you don't have a good way of making sure that it is well maintained and operates well. Unless, of course, there is some money which comes for operation, but often that doesn't happen. How do you make sure that something is operated well? And I think this hybrid annuity model for under PPP for ensuring good operations is a great way. It's a lesson for many other projects that should get taken up. I think that's an outstanding example. Now, I really don't want to say much more, but the other last point that I really wanted to say is, on many of these projects, the solutions involve multiple agencies. It's not only multiple agencies of the government, it is multiple stakeholders outside the government. And unless all of them come together, it becomes very difficult to find a coordinated solution. Without that coordinated solution, as I said earlier, you only have piecemeal things that are going on. And again, what this has demonstrated is the ability to have brought all the pieces together into trying to work together and implement that solution in the right way. So I think that's a great initiative that was taken in coordinated effort in dealing with the problems. So with that, I think the way the book has ended is really, again, a reflection of the passion in the heart that you have brought out. I will only say Rajiv gave me a copy of this book a few days ago, and I promised to read it, but I don't know where I'll be able to, where in the priority list it will be. Out of so many other things that are pending, I really have to find the time to read it. But listening to you, clearly that priority has shifted up significantly. I think I'll be really excited, looking forward to reading this book. But with that, let me again say thank you very much for having me. Rajiv, delighted to have heard you. You've really excited me about this whole project and the work that you've done. Thank you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Professor Tare.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for those comments, and I think you have, in totality, summarized how good documentation is, and that is really something which is very rare. People do work in their official capacities, but rarely give importance to documenting it, and also documenting not like a report, but making it very interesting read, and talking about all aspects, where we succeeded, where we did not succeed, or much needs to be done, what is nature can do for us, and where we need to support. And that's very interestingly talked about when they talk about the story of Uttarakhand and Jharkhand. By and large, the situation is still very pristine, still very natural, very beautiful. So we need to restore that. And somewhere in Kanpur or Prayagraj or in Varanasi or in Bihar, it is our responsibility. So we have to change this thing. So that is where they're talking about rebuilding Kanpur, rebuild. They're not talking about rebuilding Ganga, because it is we have to talk about how do we change so rebuilding, rethinking about how do we develop and actions that are needed in the urban and the other sectors, particularly in Uttar Pradesh and in Bihar. And of course, the complexities that is talked about with reference to the West Bengal. So all these are very, very nicely narrated, though it may be a reporting of various kinds of issues, but put it in a very interesting way. And I will now turn to Puskal Upadhyay. A very interesting interaction I used to have with him. And I think he was the real architect of the public-private partnership, the hybrid model. A number of times we had discussion. But one more very interesting thing I'll tell you, that is the time when when he was about to leave. I think we submitted the Ganga River Basin Management Plan, and we always felt that there should be continuity, dynamically evolving, and we talked about building this Sea Ganga. And at times it was taking a lot of time. So sometimes he also felt probably that I was losing my patience. But he said, Professor Tare, have patience. I will make it in such a way that this becomes sustainable. And I would really say the way he has put in his mind, the way the MOA was formulated, and the way the Sea Ganga's pathway was shot down, I think that is something can come only from a person who has the patience for it and who looks at it not just as a government job, but also how the future will come. The governments may come, may go, but this job has to go on. So with that in mind, so I think this combination is the best combination for narrating whatever that has been done. So with that, I will request Puskal to give his remarks and his side of the story or views, which probably Rajiv ji did not give that much importance, or left it to him to speak about.
And before he starts, I again apologize for having to leave early. But goodbye, everyone. And
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Puskal.
Thanks a lot, Tare sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes,
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. Tare sir, I have considered myself as your student. And the subject of Ganga also, I have developed this entire thing under your guidance. I wanted to go to IIT, but instead I went to an NIT. And then I think this was partly compensated working on this program and working with you and learning all the things on the go. I would like to share my own thoughts, which will also give an idea what is the flavor of the book per se. Ganga has always been known as the most righteous thing. the epitome of purity and everything. But a decade back, unfortunately, the Ganga program did not have the same reputation. And on a contrast, it was known for all the wrong reasons. So from a decade back to what we are today, there has been a huge transformation. There is a change of implementation, there is a change of experience, and there is a change in expectations. So the basic motivations before working on this program, will anything ever happen? To a presentation which Rajiv sir has already made, and which is a testament to the entire process. We have seen a lot has happened. This experience, but how this experience happens, that is also very important. The extraordinary results must have come through some extraordinary measures. The book, we have tried to list out what are those things which make this transformation possible. Working on Ganga program has been a hugely transforming experience. We have been trying to transform a program. Later we realized in the process, we have been getting transformed as well. This is a unique story in which the program, which is the Namami Ganga program, it was being evolved and being transformed on every passing day. In the process, that institution, the National Mission for Clean Ganga, which has also been almost at the same time having been created, and which started with a very, very fragmented 4-people team, that also kept on growing on a day-to-day basis. How this transformation, the growth of the objective and the growth of the machine, both happens at the same time. And in the process, the people who are working on that, which includes me and Rajiv sir, we kept on getting transformed. While we are writing this book, this transformation continued further. And today, we find ourselves very changed. There is a small hope, get a flavor, and I am sure the way Ganga is, there is somewhere from him also in some way. Two things, sir, I have seen that this book, as a reader, when I read this, what I can look forward to. What once that simple.
Okay.
From a scientific that
I guess there is some
Think-
internet issue. So the voice is being broken.
from this look at market okay, am I
Puskal, we are not able to. I think कुछ internet issue है. So
okay? Am I okay?
maybe you can switch off your video and then speak. It may improve.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So, sir, what is saying? Two things. So, if you can hear me, two things which I really say, which I wanted the reader to get a flavor. Number one, it is possible. Only you have to take care of a few small things. They are not rocket science. Just take care of them, and this can happen. Second thing is what we have realized, and we want everyone to feel a flavor of that, is the collaboration which is important. Whether, sir, you would agree that at a point of time, nobody believed that something like Ganga River Basin Management Report could be done. We thought this can be done only outside India. Our IITs made this happen. And this report itself is a tremendous collaboration. Moving from there, what we have in the program, we saw laboratories, every institution in a even into this implementation program. But here, with all this, while the readers, I would request the readers go through this and see and experience it their own way. Another point which I want to flag now, is it the time that the rivers have to come at the center of planning process? This forum is for the people who are well up in economics and the planning. And in the planning process, we have been looking at different methods of what is the basis of planning. I'm thinking, is it the time where the rivers can come at the center of planning? Professor Tare says times and so many of the rocks. The way rivers include each and every aspect of the economical sphere, maybe there is a case to look at that. But once our entire thinking becomes river centric, I think the rivers will also be secured, and we will also be secured to get together with them. My committee is that, like I said, the Ganga is a river for everyone. It's not for a certain people. Everyone, the Ganga has something for everybody. In a similar way, this book has something for everybody, right from the simplest person who's just concerned about whether the Ganga will ever become clean, from him to the policymakers, even for the researchers, even for the startup experts, and even for the people who have to do any further work on this. This will supposedly make a good baseline. They can start working on that. It has been a great experience for me, and that this book will be a great reading for every one of us. Thanks a lot, Professor Tare.
Thank you for bringing out some more aspects of it. Obviously, coming from your heart and what you actually have been able to achieve while you were in NMCG, and also even after leaving NMCG. I am sure I myself had a number of time interactions with you, and you have not lost any interest whatsoever, or rather your interest continues to grow on this, and I'm sure you will continue to work on this particular topic. So with this now, I think it is time, and it will be good that we get comments and questions from the audience. Since technology always poses a challenge, so I would like to request the organizers to take care of the question answers, and wherever there is a need for me to intervene, and I'm sure both the authors will definitely respond and comment on the questions. So I hand over this to the organizers for managing the question answer session. Sir, please.
Sure. I must thank both the authors who have spoken so far. So, when we talk of Ganges, we only think of Gangotri, because I've been to various parts chasing Ganga and up till Hempund, and I know how pristine this river is. And I'd gone way back in 77 and seen it at different places, at Hardwar, at Joshimath, and the way it all. Of course, I did not go till Gangotri, but I'd gone till Govind Ghat and Govind Dham and seen that place. So the river itself is so beautiful and pure. And of course, younger generation at that time could only think of Ram Teri Ganga Mali. And now, when you all are engaged in cleaning it, I'm sure another movie is going to come which says that, okay, Ram, Teri Ganga Swachh ho gayi. So I'm sure something like that is going to happen. Now, I wanted to check with you in your book. Do you cover the economic aspects that River Ganga brings in? Because it's a lifeline of the country, and the way it flows through different states, the length of the river going up till Sundarbans and into Bengal. I think nearly 30 to 40% of India's population survives on River Ganga. India's tourism, to a great extent, depends on River Ganga. And therefore, even the water transport, I'm sure Ganga served as an important mode of water transport for many generations. So my question is, in the book, do you cover the economic aspects? And if you cover, what do you think is the impact of cleaning River Ganga in terms of costing and in terms of benefit that the country can expect?
Yeah, excellent point, Professor Saab. I think in different parts of the book, I mean, while talking about the importance of the river right in the beginning, why Ganga matters, we talk about the economic importance, the importance of Ganga for water and food security, and then what it means for all of us, and why it is essential to clean, so that comes. Then somewhere, I think in the Kanpur chapter, we talk about the National Ganga Council meeting and then the Honorable Prime Minister's meeting, where he talks about linking livelihood and economy with conservation and named it Earth Ganga. So I think that is again somewhere where we talk about the economics. And as you very rightly pointed out, some sectors in different places, we talk about the agriculture. Basically, idea is sensitizing people that clean river is so much important for their economic survival also. So I think what they can do to keep it clean. So river health, healthy river means what in terms of health, in terms of economy, in terms of food, in terms of several things. So that part is there. Another idea of economy is there in a chapter where we say that the whole program of Ganga cleaning or Ganga rejuvenation, I should say, should become self-sustaining. So I think there is a lot of talk about circular economy, about use, reuse, and further reuse, and paying for its own upkeep. And then we also talk about pricing of water. So I think all those things are there. Then there is also one thought, perhaps we as a country have to work more on that, and this is the right forum. See, any river or any of these natural systems serve lot of ecosystem services. And perhaps we don't have a very common or very, we are not so much used to evaluating that ecosystem services. So I think to really evaluate what is the value of Ganga in terms of economic value, forget about the whole Ganga, even one stretch. What is the ecosystem services gives by way of provisioning, by way of regulatory services, by way of spiritual or cultural services it gives. So I think we started in the mission trying to develop that in one of the World Bank supported program to develop economic models for ecosystem services. It's a work in progress, but we somewhere flag it. That's the way to go. Because often we say that if you don't allow this project, what is the loss is happening due to environment, but what is the value of the ecosystem service of an environmental entity or the river and its ecosystem is sometimes lost sight of. So I think these are some of the thoughts which are there at different places. Its economic importance and why we must preserve it, number one. Number two, what it gives to us, can we value it? Can we attach a number to it which makes it easier for us to go to the policy makers and convince about do's and do nots of a project? And the whole Earth Ganga, primarily few sectors we look at. One is agriculture and allied thing, not only agriculture, afforestation, animal husbandry and all fisheries. So all that sector is one major part. You rightly mentioned about tourism. Tourism also has a lot of economic potential, and then also inland waterways. But inland waterways also have to be sensitive to the dolphins. So I think all these balance and all these things we talk in different parts of the book. But as I told you, the economic valuation this is not a book which goes into a lot of depth of economic numbers, because perhaps the scope of this book was more general. So it touches heart, it touches several aspects. It also touches the story of this whole journey and where it should go. But where it should go, economics plays a major role. Where it should go, how it should become economically sustainable, and how we should keep on driving the benefit from the environment in a sustainable way. Ultimately, as you know, good environment is good economy also. So I think that is the thing.
Thank you. Pushkal, do you want to add something? Hello? Pushkal, are you there? Able to?
No,
Do you want to add something?
no,
Okay. Okay. I think so. Very, very important aspects. Sir,
no,
you
sir, I think
raised.
I said all about the.
Yeah. So I think you have raised very important issue, and Rajiv ji has answered it with that kind of enthusiasm also. And you are very right. In fact, our Prime Minister has now given us the target that the 3% increase in 3% contribution of GDP should come from river conservation. And he keeps talking about all the forum. In fact, the recently held COP26, where he mentioned about all the programs and policies and how we can achieve our target by 2070 or so. And they are not just a hypothetical thing. There is a good work that is going on and planning that is happening. And the heart of it is water. So if water and rivers are made sustainable, if their capability is retained, there is nothing. And talking about circular economy, closing the loop at the local level, then Make in India, Startup India, Digital India, all these are various features of Namami Ganga program, and they are applicable much more to water sector and the Namami Ganga program, and that all will make sure that our economy becomes more stable, and the growth also is sustained. So that's very interesting point. I will again go back to you, and from others or from your side, if there are any other issues, most welcome.
So I would open and request everybody, the participants, to ask their questions. You can type it in the chat box. I can keep watching it, or raise your hand as we always do on this forum, and you can ask a question. And Professor Tare, as well as Mr. Mishra, I have one related question. As you see in other countries of the world, the rivers which run through major cities become the fulcrum, and they serve as entertainment and tourism centers. Even you look at the River Thames right in London, the way they've beautified the banks, it's a great center of commerce. All shopping centers and convention halls are all on the riverside. Unfortunately, in India, we have let our rivers flow through the cities in a very silent manner. Now, the number of cities that you probably would know better than me are on the banks of Ganges, and Kanpur is one which you have been mentioning. And I've been to Allahabad many times, and I understand Patna many times again. I think these are cities which are so silent, quiet, and sleepy cities. Whereas the river, when it passes through all of them, could really brighten up the life in these cities. There could be a nightlife around the river. There could be lots of commerce during the day around the river, and that hasn't happened. On the other hand, of course, agriculture gets rejuvenated once the river water is clean and pure. And while the river collects the rain, but also during the season of sowing and Rabi and Kharif, the river can play a very important role through small canals and things like that. While you are engaged actively in rejuvenating this river, are there plans to build commerce centers around this river, as well as to ensure that the agriculture in the neighboring areas of this river are also rejuvenated? The point I'm making is, when the Prime Minister speaks about infrastructure, he speaks about corridors, then he speaks about corridor Delhi, Bombay, and on the road next to the corridor, he has plans to build up export processing zones and industrial belts. So once you invest in cleaning the river, is it just leaving it at cleaning it, or is there phase two of the cleaning project where you say now the commerce part takes over? The last question I had for both of you: what is the cost of cleaning that you are attempting now, and how long do you think this process will be able to sustain before the devious Indians start polluting it again once you stop monitoring?
you want to address that, then I will also comment after you both comment.
Great questions. I think if we answer these three questions, a very large part of the gamut gets covered. I think I will start with how cities should behave vis-a-vis the rivers. I think you have really, in fact, आपने मेरे दिल की बात कही, because for last few years I have been talking at every forum about it. And as you see, I was earlier in environment ministry. I went to urban development, so I have seen the urban planning part of it and how they are thinking. In fact, often city managers do not think the river is also part of their city. That's one of the major problem from where it starts. So what happens, instead of getting the benefit of the river, often city administration also puts the garbage in the floodplain. And slowly what happens, the situation becomes so bad, like we turn our back to the river. So I think that is something which is very dangerous for the river and more dangerous for the city. And that's why we started talking about river city. So all the river city must start planning in a different way. The thinking has to change. So I think in Namami Gange program, last 2-3 years, apart from sustainable STP and other things, we started talking about river sensitive master plan. The river sensitive water planning in the river. I think that's the solution. Rivers should be, what Puskal also said, rivers should be in the center of planning. And you will be happy to know some of the cities you mentioned. Patna is 2 years back, we completed a riverfront development project which actually connects 16 rivers, 16 ghats along Ganga river. And I think that's becoming a kind of good hub, of a good place where people go there, do yoga, do evening walk. And I think that is a way of connecting people. So I think that's something very important. And slowly water is coming as a kind of major part of the river planning or the city planning. So I think, I hope this river city part will start changing. And we recently, last year, we also constituted a river city alliance. So I think some cities which are on the bank of the river, or or the river passes through them, I think we are trying to organize them as a kind of alliance, and then we are working with the line ministry, which is responsible for the city. So I think this is and when we talk about Earth Ganga, the tourism, if you have a good riverfront, we all go to Paris and then we go to the Seine river and then we take so much of tour. So I think there is a huge potential to improve the riverfront, give a much needed public space for the people, for the citizens, reconnect them. That's why the reconnecting is not only from the people by the public outreach program. Through these kind of development process also you can reconnect them. So I think that is very important thing which you said. Second aspect about, I know the Professor Tare as well as Puskal will further add to it, but I will take a call upon agriculture. You are absolutely right about agriculture, about the industrial corridors and special zones for industry and corridors, etc., etc. The last 2 years, there is, in fact, the same Kanpur chapter, it was also mentioned, and in the latest budget also it has come, that to start with Ganga, along Ganga, about 5 kilometer corridor of organic farming, natural farming, and better agricultural practices should be taken on priority. That is the decision of the government, and the programs Agriculture Ministry already started. I have seen last 2 years lot of scaling up of the organic farming in Ganga belt. So I think a kind of organic or a kind of better agriculture, natural agriculture corridor has been announced in principle by the government, and then I think again it's a lot of work has happened, but we have to go a long way into that. So but I think, in fact, there is also a discussion about branding of the produce as a Namami Gange organic farming, and lot more marketing, lot more economic activity has to be there. But certainly it's in the agenda, because what will happen if your agriculture is cleaner and the river is cleaner, the agriculture also becomes much better, and even the soil fertility, everything becomes good. So I think agriculture, in fact, Professor Tare will agree, when the IIT gave the plan, sustainable agriculture was one of the key mission identified by them. When people were only talking about STP and Nala closing, it was right in the beginning of Namami Gange, agriculture plays a major role. and now it's going to become the top priority in the Namami Gange program in future also. So that is certainly in the agenda of this thing. And cost of cleaning, how long it will take. In our book, we have talked about it. See what we got, 20,000 crore in the beginning of the plan. If you look at, I think there is a lot of very interesting things in public domain. People say Ganga Action Plan and this and that, lot much money has been spent. In fact, from 2014 up to 2014, from 85, 86 onwards, what was spent by Government of India was around 4,000 crore under all the programs. Then nothing much was possible because I think it is too thin. On an average 100 200 crore expenditure for 2,500 kilometer long river, it's not going to make any difference. Now in last from 2015 14 15 we have spent something like 11,000 crore, and you can see some pictures I have shown, but all along more than 100 STPs have been completed. So I think at present, and our approach is also not to only pay immediately, so it's going to be a long term 15-year O&M is also part of the project. On the main stem of Ganga, most of the projects have been sanctioned and they are at different stages. Many have been completed. But just to give an idea, not so much by number, but now the work is going on the tributaries. So next 5 years, I think construction work on the tributaries will be going on. But we will be increasingly shifting into the monitoring. As you very rightly said, will the Ganga Action Plan story be repeated again? I think that was the question when we were planning also. And that's why trying to put 15-year O&M. Now, the question again comes to people. If people are vigilant, if they want clean water, they will not allow nalas to be again reopened. So that's why simultaneously you have to do Jan Ganga. And I think my experience of last few years shows that people are becoming little more aware about cleanliness, whether it is Swachh Bharat Mission or Namami Gange and other program. So you have to create institutional structure and also create some revenue stream and really involve people, because money is not the really important thing, because the state governments also spend a lot of money on other sector. If it is their priority, they will find money to maintain these assets. After all, Government of India is creating and maintaining them for 15 years. So why can't it can be continued? अच्छा देखिए 15 साल तक अगर साफ शहर और साफ नदी दिखेगी, it will be very difficult to relapse. So that is also an assumption that once you clean up and people are seeing cleaner banks, cleaner river, I think, and if they are part of this whole process, perhaps we'll be able to sustain it. Maybe Professor Tare or Puskal, you can, because these are very broad and big areas. We can actually debate on each one of them for quite some time.
Puskal, first your chance.
Yeah, sir, I will make a quick point. Sir, right now we have been focusing on the most critical part. But since these are the important missions which are already been identified, this has been a question of timing. And yes, economic viability, that's why I added the program itself. This has come as a stated that by the time this 15 years period gets over, in the meantime, we had made some municipal governance reforms and we had developed some market development strategies, which makes these projects also self-sustainable. But the way sir has mentioned, with this budget statement to develop an organic farming on the banks of Ganga, where the statement has already been made. The process has been kick-started one by one. When the activities will be added to that, the economic thing takes over. But everything will start only when we see a clean river. And that's what we have focused right now. Sir, Professor Tare, over to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to add on what you have said. I think economy is now at the focus of river cleanup. And in fact, whenever we talk about, we have to look at it developing economy in a slightly different way than the developed world is looking at, and what you mentioned about Thames River, high-rise buildings and river fronts and things like that. Yes, we are also talking about riverfront, but one thing that we have to make sure that riverfront is not without river. So riverfront can be useful only if the river is there. And river means it has to be aviral and nirmal. And that means the river restoration, conservation and development has to be seen as two sides of the same coin. They cannot be two different programs. While it appears that river conservation is only an expenditure kind of thing, we don't get anything returned, but that is not true. And I will quote you two good examples. Like I'm sure you must have heard of Kumbh Mela, Allahabad Kumbh Mela. And I think people talked about that, oh, it is a religious kind of thing. But I'll tell you about the economy of it. Government probably spent something like 1,500 crores on the Kumbh Mela. But we have done some rough calculations. The economy around it was around 15,000 crores or so. So it's 10 times more than the expenditure that the government made on Kumbh Mela and this thing. And you know whom did it money touch to? It's local people. Okay, and that is because a very good branding was done of the entire Kumbh Mela, and we have seen a lot of dignitaries visiting, and unless until we do, and that is why what the Prime Minister says, be vocal for local things, and that is very important. So whether it is Kumbh Mela or if you now go and see Varanasi, okay, you can see a lot of activities which have changed the scene of Hamad. Of course, we have made some investment in Varanasi centered around Ganga, but it has become so good now, and I'm sure if we start calculating, the data is still not there, but we are working on it, and I'm sure we will be able to prove that the investments that we have done in STPs are in making those ghats will give us the return, and that return will make all this effort sustainable. As Rajiv has said, the future generation will not allow us to make sure that the Ganga or the rivers go back to the filthy situation. And I'm very happy, and I'm sure even in Delhi it is being talked about, and the Delhi government is very vehemently saying we will make sure within 2 or 3 hours not a drop of sewage goes into Yamuna, and Yamuna also will become so that's complete transformation that has happened, and I'm sure that will make us sustainable. So, and agriculture and industry, the corridors that we're talking about, they can be only the front face, but the real activity about the rivers and Ganga in terms of agriculture and industry in a clean manner will go on the backside, and whatever is produced there will come into the front corridor, and that will be the showcase for us to take. So it's very right point that you raise. And I think we can discuss some more points through you. So I hand over to you again. If you have any questions from the audience, or you have your own issues, most welcome, sir.
I think Farah Khan in the audience has a question. Farah, would you like to go ahead yourself, or you want me to read it? Okay, I can read it. How do we do impact assessment of these projects and ensure that means along the way are also sustainable when planning the river management projects?
Gigi, you want to answer?
Yeah. Again, a very important area, this question of impact assessment. See, what are these projects? Projects are, I think, some set of projects are basically pollution abatement projects. So the impact of these things, I think we have a system of monitoring the water quality. I showed some graphs, etc., that what is the impact of construction of the STP upon the water quality in terms of certain agreed values or indicators. So I think with the help of Central Pollution Control Board, and we have also started, I think for the first time in Ganga, real-time water quality monitoring, and monitoring needs to be very much strengthened, and that has started happening. So that is one part of looking at the impact of this project. But in the long term, I think this will also take few more years, because as many of the projects got completed from 2019 onwards. So I think the long term impact on the water quality, immediately it's happening, but ultimately the tributaries projects and other things, but the system is in place to look at the water quality monitoring and then correlate them with the projects. So I think that system is there. And another thing is, we also involve some of the educational academic institutions and expert institutions to look at the various industries about what they are doing and all that. So that also gives us some sort of assessment. But this impact assessment process, I think this needs to be continued on as we are going into different kinds of projects, as more projects for the riverfront and for other kinds of projects or agriculture, etc. is there. So I think that is where perhaps we will need to broad base. It has been mostly pollution abatement projects in terms of infrastructure. So that impact assessment and its outcome is being seen. But for the other things, the newer kind of impact assessment mechanism will be done. One more thing I would like to add, because you are talking about impact assessment, there is also a discussion about some of the other projects which impact these environmental issues. So I think the domain of what you say cumulative impact assessment of a cluster of projects. So I think that's also a kind of emerging thought on which work is happening now. Maybe Professor Tare will like to add something from his research.
Before I say, I again request Puskal if he wants to add from his side. I think there is some internet issue at his end.
I think so you can.
Yeah. So I think what you have said.
Well, I think this will be more appropriate issue, sir.
Okay. So I think it's a very important issue to understand the impact part of it, and the new vision and the direction in which we are working on this. That the monitoring, of course, the agencies can do it, but if you want to bring in the credibility in terms of the monitoring, we need to involve or empower the communities which live along the river. And we want to make that process very simple. And our simple thing to look at whether the river has improved in terms of its health or not, we are talking about whether the indigenous aquatic life in the river improves or not. Okay, and that only the riverside communities can tell us. So that's a single indicator we are looking at, and that way the entire communities which are along the riverside will also get monitored. And the other scientific monitoring spectrum also we are trying to look at how can we involve our primary schools and secondary schools to get into, because after all I tell you, river monitoring is not a rocket science and we don't necessarily need, so that also we are developing in our own way, not necessarily the high-fi real-time instruments only will tell us anything. So we can also look at indigenous, so that is one thing. And the final indicator of the impact is what the task that has been given to us through river conservation, how much increase in contribution to the GDP we have been able to achieve. Okay, and I'm sure those numbers will come, and that's the real impact that I believe. So monitoring process has to be wide spectrum. People have to be empowered in monitoring. Let them say, rather than government or the government agencies saying that the river has become less, let the people say that yes, river has actually changed. And that is, if they can see dolphins there, if they can see the fish there, if people can see Mashir where the Mashir should be, if people can see where Hilsa should be, if they can see Hilsa, if people can see various kinds of aquatic life forms, birds, I think that's the real monitoring, and that is what we look at. And if that report comes positive, I'm sure the efforts will be sustainable. And the indicator that we want to show, the real indicator is, yes, we have made investments, but how much that has resulted into the contribution to the GDP by making sure that our rivers and water bodies, and that is what Puskal also said earlier, that our whole economic development has to be centered around water and rivers, because that's key to our thing. And one more thing is, I think nowhere in the world we have laboratories natural laboratories, which I always say, the network of rivers, wetlands, ponds, reservoirs. I think we are very lucky. Nowhere in the world we have such rich laboratories, and that also we can take to our advantage, and the entire world should come to us and see how we utilize this for our own growth, and a very different style of monitoring. All these things, I'm sure the way we have gone through the journey of the river cleanup from Ganga Action Plan Phase 1 to the present form of Namami Ganga, and it's evolving every day. It's evolving every day, and more people are bringing in more ideas, and the government officers also becoming more sensitive to it and developing it. And recently we had some meetings wherein a suggestion came from Tamil Nadu, wherein the Tamil Nadu government has started this making river trustees for small rivers. Similarly, from Telangana and Andhra, we learn how the agricultural practices they are reforming to make sure that the water consumption is gone, yield goes up, and all those kind of things. So the river cleanup, our Namami Ganga program, our river restoration is no longer just the STP. Okay, it will get into various other dimensions. And so far as how long we have to continue, I think as long as we want the river to flow, we will have to make sure we continue this effort. This cannot stop. As long as we expect or we want Ganga to flow, our efforts also has to continue that. There cannot be any timeline given for river cleanup or Ganga cleanup. It has to be continuous as long as we expect Ganga to flow. So back to you again for
I
any
think
more questions or whatever.
I think Professor Tare has really brought some of the things which we are missing, and Wildlife Institute of India is working with us about this aquatic life monitoring, and then through community, the Ganga Prahari and Ganga Mitra. In fact, the sighting of dolphins, sighting of other aquatic animals is increasing, and also in different places where they were not earlier found. So I think there is a whole scientific mechanism in place, and some people from Wildlife Institute, Dr. Badola is also hearing us. So I think for the first time, this kind of mapping has been done, and now that monitoring thing is being taken up. So I think, as Professor Tare says, there are a whole lot of things which will keep on evolving, and then we have to learn from some of the other rivers also internationally, where they said that we have to get back the Solomon into Rhine or into Thames, and then only we will say that river is rejuvenated. So I think it's a kind of a standard thing to put a kind of species, aquatic species, and say that if we rejuvenated this species, that means the river is also rejuvenated.
That's very interesting.
Starting many new programs. For example, recently I was in Dubai and we are interacting with various. Now many countries, in fact, I must say, when I went there, I really felt proud. The Indian pavilion in Dubai Expo was the best amongst all the countries. Okay, and the emphasis was on water and how we utilize our ancient knowledge, traditional wisdom, and the modern science like reaching up to the moon, Mars mission, everything was put together, yoga and things like that. I think that's the way to develop our own brand. And now many people are looking at our thing, and many people approached me and the mission that we want to have a program of twinning of rivers, like one river from India and other river from their country. And that way we want to kind of like sometime back we talked about Kyoto and Varanasi. I think it is other way that people are talking about how can we match with Ganga, which river we can match? Or they're saying, okay, small rivers, how do we match Indian rivers with the river in our country? And various other aspects. In fact, one actor I met in Dubai, she was telling me, I would like to have a cultural program with Indian artists and have a hybrid kind of cultural program where I bring in Western versus Indian and talk about rivers and their life and things like that. So I think many dimensions are coming, and when we talk about economy, this will give us the returns. So STP, no doubt, keeping it clean, but that is not for river. It is to clean our own dirt. That is important. Like the way I make sure I keep my house clean. So similarly, that much expenditure I have to make sure that I do it to ensure that my rivers are clean, and that has to go on as long as I keep creating waste, which also is a continuous process, will happen all the time. So this has to go hand in hand together. But as long as we get more returns out of it, even in economic sense, I think the efforts will become sustainable. And that's the branding and presenting it to this to our own people will make this program sustainable and long term. Yes, sir. Please.
Please,
May I,
yeah,
may I ask a question?
please.
Sure.
Yeah, I congratulate speakers, Dr. Vinod, Tare, and Rajiv ji, for such a pioneering discussion on Ganga and the related aspects of agriculture. I am reminded of Dandekar. He said in 60s that there will be the well lords, not the landlords, and meaning thereby he was underscoring the importance of water. So you have very appropriately linked the cleaning of Ganga with its impact and the linkages with the agriculture and the GDP. And just one simple question, because my interest is in agriculture. And now organic farming is getting prominence and it's being promoted both in domestically and for the export also. There is a lot of potential. I done some research on that. All said and done. Now this in this budget, 5 kilometer has been earmarked for organic farming, and so do you have any idea whether it will be scaled up that 5 kilometer strip for organic, because there is a lot of potential for this, and have you worked out it in terms of financial implication, how much it will add to our GDP or the agriculture GDP, if I can say so? So any take on this? Because I find this is a very good initiative. The government has earmarked a strip of 5 kilometers along the Ganga and for organic and other things. And then how do you think in say next 5 to 10 years, how much organic cropping area will increase and what will be its impact in terms of agri GDP?
It is really very difficult for me to give those numbers offhand, but I can also certainly say that organic farming, there are a lot of things. We all know that organic farming is good, but at the same time, it is also a fact that today it is not considered to be economically viable. Okay, there are a number of reasons for that, and we are trying to go to the root cause of it. And what we see as a Namami Ganga program, a river cleanup program, but I can tell you there are many other programs at the government with much more investment in it, which actually is going to work towards river Ganga or river regeneration. One example I'll give, the Manrega program that we have. And I recently came to know very surprisingly that in Manrega program, the annual budget of Manrega program is probably much more than the Namami Ganga program budget that we're talking about 5 years or so. Now in that Manrega program, 60 to 70% money has to be spent on nature conservation, regeneration, and efforts like that. Now, where will that money spent? That money will go into the rural sector. And where is this organic farming and other thing is going to happen? It is going to happen in those places, right? And one of the challenge why organic farming we are not able to bring up, because the cost of production is going up, is higher, even if we increase the higher value of the product because of it is organic product. That is only to some extent, because if it make it very expensive, people obviously, even though they know it, they cannot afford it. So we need to bring down the cost of that. And how we can bring down the cost? We can use these programs, because 50-60% of the cost is labor cost. And if we can ensure that the Manrega program is successful, because Manrega is an ongoing program, it's a continuous program, and the benefits that we will have out of it is, it will avoid migration, right? So people will get jobs or this thing where they are actually staying. Okay, and it will build our organic crop. So there is a good plan that is going on, and I'm sure you will see the results, because results of such programs you don't see overnight. It takes a while. For example, Namami Ganga program itself, it has taken, which was taken at a very high speed, it has taken 7-8 years to go to this level. So similarly, these programs, agriculture and all, is very slow. So there are lots of measures which are taken in promoting agriculture, in promoting reduction of water in agriculture, per more production per drop of water. All these measures will eventually not only protect river but also develop our economy. So there are number of programs, and I see connection between all these, whether it is vocal for local, whether it is one district, one product, whether it is Digital India, whether it is Make in India, whether it is Startup India. All these are programs which will lead us to sustainable development and river conservation, nature conservation, and also then tourism and all other aspects that we talk about.
I
Yes,
think
sir, back to you. Rajiv, you want to add?
Just 1 minute. You have given a very good elaborate answer. One thing I want to clarify, the whole purpose of Namami Ganga mission, it was very clear in the National Ganga Council that all ministries, all sectoral programs should look at Ganga and see what from their programs they can contribute to it. So not that this kind of money, everything will be funded from Namami Ganga. So Manrega in 2019, we got river conservation, a small river conservation, water conservation, all those things in the priority list of Manrega. So that we did not actually go from NMCG and start funding those small river conservation works, but they can come from that. And district is the unit, so their coordination becomes easy. So similarly, this organic farming thing, as Professor Tare said, Agriculture Ministry and their program of organic farming has got scaled up. The numbers will take some time for them to work the entire program and budgeting, as you know, in the government. But I can tell you in last 2 years, the buzz has created, and in Uttarakhand, just to give you an idea how it has increased, what was the subsidy given for 2,000 hectare has gone to 50,000 hectare in Uttarakhand. So I think that is the kind of scaling up which is happening in Uttarakhand. It's a very suitable place also for organic. So like that in UP and Bihar also it is picking up. So I think it needs, but the issue of economics of organic farming, marketing support, branding, certification, I think there are several issues which needs to be, and these are the issues which are also interministerial issues. So I think all these things have to be set up. But once a target is given that 5-kilometer corridor will work, that drives all these ministries, all the stakeholders to come together and find solutions. So that is the thing.
If there is no supplement question from Dr. Vishuddha, he's our founding director, he's my colleague on the board, then we can conclude. Dr. Vishuddha.
Yeah, I am fine with this because their answer was elaborate. So I'm quite happy with the answer of the panelists and specialists, Dr. Vinod, Dr. Rajiv ji. So thank you very much for your insightful deliberation. I got benefited out of it. Thank you very much. So over to Charan.
I must thank all of you, but after listening to all of you, I'm increasingly getting a feeling that you have done a very, very good job, very good job. But you do need, for future planning, an economist or a finance expert. Cleaning the river has its own advantages, but commercializing a clean river is far more better. I have been to Kumbh Mela many times myself. My association with Allahabad has been long. I do understand that every religious festival adds some value to GDP, and the Kumbh Mela, even if the river was not clean, would still give you, if not 10 times, nine times more revenue, because the tents are there and local economy always benefits. But my point is that if an economy has to reach the Prime Minister's dream of a $5 trillion economy, and you invest in cleaning the river, and such senior officers of Indian Administrative Service, the IIT professors are working on it. Now, what is the best that we can leverage out from a clean river? It's my individual personal thought And I think as the infrastructure, river is an infrastructure. You clean the river, we can use the river for many purposes, including ship movement and lumber movement and log movement, including beautification of the banks and attracting tourism. The Varanasi example which you give me, the Aarti which takes place on the ghats, when the Prime Minister goes and visits them, the international impact it has. And when the Prime Minister went there with the Japanese Prime Minister, the international impact it had on tourism was immense. This Prime Minister is a visionary. Everything that he does, every minute that he spends, to me, he thinks like an economist and thinks, how can I push the economy into a $5 trillion economy? So, therefore, you are at the helm of affairs, and I'm sure you have professors of finance and economics at IIT Kanpur, um, and I'm sure there are others who are willing to. But I would start thinking now that after the cleaning has taken place and the pure water is flowing in the rivers, rather it gets into the hands of the Coca-Cola and mineral water companies, it is better that we commercialize it in a way that this nerve center of India flowing through the hearts start flowing through the pockets of Indians, and we make the best of it. And to my mind, Professor, I used to live in Sydney, and I know students in Sydney, science students in Sydney, used to go and check water level every day, sorry, water quality every day. And that used to be computerized, information fed in the system, saying that the school at this place did the water testing every day, and that gets into the system database so that they know where the river got polluted. And they will swing into action within 24 hours that at this point some pollutant has entered the river. So such was the efficient, sustainable mechanism that Sydney had done for its rivers. I also had a chance to live in Washington D.C. and there's a river flowing through Washington D.C. and exactly the same thing that I came to know, that they monitor the water quality every few kilometers, and they instantly come to know who's the pollutant and where the pollutant entered. I'm sure you as a professor are working more meticulously than these. You are probably taking these examples. The last point I want to make, Professor, is because you are now the founding of the Clean Ganga project. The last point that I wanted to make, Professor, was that when I had a chance to visit some of the Western countries and I had seen the cargo move through the river, the river had sort of ports at different places. While it involved movement of people, much more safer boats, it also involved movement of cargo in much safer ships on the during the course of the length of the river. So one thought that I had in mind, while our trains and locomotives do and our trucks do a robust, brisk business in this route of where Ganges flows, UP, Bihar, Bengal, maybe we can start thinking of cargo movement, which will be very, very cost effective. As you already know, the cheapest mode of transport is water transport, and much cheaper than the road and much also cheaper than the rail. So I'm just leaving some thoughts with you, thinking off the cuff. I must thank all four of you, especially Professor you, and two of them say they are your students. With the knowledge base I can make out, all three of you have done so much of work on this area, and you have spent an evening sharing your years of effort contained in that book and sharing it with us. I must thank each one of you. Also thank my friend O.P. Agarwal for having come and spent time with us. If we in EGROW Foundation can be of any use to you in terms of providing you inputs as an economist or meeting the Prime Minister's vision of 2047, 25 years from now, and in 25 years from now, how we can contribute to make the river Ganges, the river of the gods, much more pure, to attract religious tourism, also ensure cheap transportation. We at EGROW will be thrilled to join you and provide you inputs. We would rather consider it as a God's gift and opportunity that we have contributed to your mighty project. And if you successfully do Ganges, I'm sure other rivers in the country would follow an example and replicate your model. There are so many other rivers in the country that will benefit. Last point I want to make, Professor, and three of you, this is my humble submission to you. I wish you will accept a citizen's request. Please don't let River Ganges get connected to other rivers. It is so pure. I would like it to see for the next generations the purity of that river. It's very difficult if you connect it with others. I know other countries would like to pouch on it and they'll get mineral water out of it, lifeline out of it, amrit out of it. But I would request, if we can, let River Ganges remain as pure as it is, right from Gangotri to Sundarbans. Let it flow in its pristine virgin glory. There are some house announcements to be made. This excellent discussion on River Ganges, something which we all worship, will be available on the video will be available by noon tomorrow on our website. I will share it with the speakers so you can share it with others too. Next Friday, we were scheduled to have a release of the official report of ASCAP, but they have postponed it to April 12. We'll reschedule. So next Friday, most probably, we will have the shadow monetary policy at the same time, 5:30 to 7, and we'll have the monetary experts speaking to us about the monetary policy, which will be announced by the Reserve Bank of India on April 8. So as a feedback, we do the shadow monetary policy. Most probably we'll schedule the shadow monetary policy committee on April 1 as a feedback for April 8. I would invite you all to please join us for that. With this, let me once again thank Professor Tare, Mr. Mishra, and from Delhi, I think Mr. Puskal Upadhyay and OP Agarwal, all the participants who have spent a Friday evening with us discussing this important issue of River Ganges. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.